Plenty of new warnings out there. Thanks for staying with us here on Weather Center Live. I'm Alex Wilson.
And I'm Dave Schwartz. It's another weatherful afternoon, and we're here to keep you safe, informed, and a little entertained. Well, a frontal boundary, the focal point for today's round of storms. So we're going to keep an eye on these cameras and keep you apprised of where these storms are. Now, once again, it is that front that's producing the storms, but it's also that front that may do something else over the water.
Right. We've got a lot to cover, so we have expert coverage and analysis that you are not going to find anywhere else. We've got senior hurricane specialist Brian Norcross here. He's going to investigate the chances that something tropical could form off the southeast coast this weekend.
But first, to severe weather expert Dr. Greg Forbes tracking active weather.
Flowers have been kicked off, and they're kind of swirling around on the streets. There's all the warnings that we've got currently active. Some along the North-South Carolina state line, where we do have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 9 o'clock Eastern time. Let's close in on those warnings. Here, right around the Charlotte area, south side of Charlotte, we've got a severe thunderstorm warning for Mecklenburg, Union, and York counties. This includes the roadways that are taking you down to the Rock Hill area, so the south side of, I believe it's 485. Quarter-size hail possible with this one, so you got to watch out for that. Then down around Charleston, it's heavy rain, potential for strong winds, and a lot of lightning, especially north of Charleston. So Charleston, Mount Pleasant, and North Charleston all dealing with these storms, and they're going to be rolling right towards the beach. So find yourself at one of those cafes and kind of hunker down there, or stay in your beach house. You don't want to get out and go for a walk within the next few minutes. Down into parts of South Georgia, we've got some warnings. One right along 75 north of Valdosta. This one, though, around the Douglas area, Coffee and Jeff Davis counties until 6:45. You guys are under a severe thunderstorm warning, and we're going to keep them in the cards as we go through late week because we've got all that moisture in play. We've got this stalled frontal boundary, and so the thunderstorms are going to fire along that stalled front. Here's tonight's forecast. Notice the thunderstorms out there through the late evening. Once we get into the overnight hours, we lose that daytime heating. Things begin to quiet down a bit. Some spots stay active, like central parts of Mississippi. But again, tomorrow afternoon, we anticipate more thunderstorms with some heavy rain possible, especially along the west coast of Florida. It's really the east coast of Florida that would love to see it, where we've got the drought conditions, particularly South Florida. When heavy rain hit right in the middle of a Phillies game, it sent the fans running, but the game actually was not called off.
So how do you make the decision? How do you make that call?
I don't know.
We're going to keep playing. We're going to hold for a while. Well, Reagan Medji, head out to the ballpark to get that answer. See you, folks. I'm Dave Schwartz.
And I'm Alex Wilson. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got tornado warning in the Dakotas, a risk of damaging storms into the night, and, you know, storms all over the place in the southeast. That same system, though, that is bringing thunderstorms to the southeast could also help to create a tropical system by the weekend.
That's right. Very interesting possibility. So let's bring in our experts, Dr. Greg Forbes and Brian Norcross, to cover our big stories this half hour. And we begin with the ongoing severe weather and Dr. Greg Forbes.
Forbes, and Brian, we're watching this frontal boundary because, you know, when we look at July and we look at these tropical systems developing, a lot of times frontal boundaries come into play.
Yeah, you can see here, this is late July here. This is where storms have been named going back to 1950. And look at the cluster here off the southeast coast and in the Gulf of Mexico. And because of that, we know that generally the ingredients are favorable in that area for storms to develop, for systems to spin up. So that's why we watch that closely.
Right. And this is something that we've got this frontal boundary, we've got the warmer water, and you're going to talk a little bit about some other factors that keep things conducive.
Right. These are the ingredients you have to get a tropical system. You have to have moisture, you have to have warm ocean water, you have to have favorable upper level winds. It can't be tearing it apart, right? And you have to have a trigger. Well, we'll start with the trigger because the trigger is the front. You need something in the atmosphere to get the air spinning.
Kind of rotate, exactly, spin.
And you also have to get something in the atmosphere to get the air lifting, right? So both of those things can happen with the front. So here's where we are right now. Here are the storms that Dr. Forbes was talking about. And look at this line here. All ahead of the front. And by the way, that front is heading to Florida. So you're going to really know it in Florida, in North Florida, because the rain is really going to pick up. There it is right now. Now watch what happens. This dip in the jet stream comes along and really kind of kicks it south. But then the dip kind of flattens out. And so it doesn't have any more southward push. So there's where it ends up.
And it's just going to kind of hang out over the weekend. And so we'll be talking about its presence over some water. We get some spin going, that warm water, and here's all that moisture.
Right. This is what the computer is analyzing for over the weekend in terms of the moisture in the atmosphere. And look at it here. look at this, just very dense area of moisture in the atmosphere. So that's the first ingredient. So we know that that's there. Of course, we know that the water is plenty warm. Right. Because there's the Gulf Stream right there. That's the warmest water off the East Coast. And then in the Gulf, you see all the purples there. The temperature's up there.
So no lack there of warm
90-degree water actually off of Panama City. And the upper level winds are generally favorable in a belt right about where the front is. So those are three of the atmospheric and oceanographic ingredients that we look for. So that's why we're keeping an eye on this.
And all of them look pretty good. So while this isn't a slam dunk case, nobody's saying, oh, it's definitely, most certainly, things are coming into play that could really allow this.
That could allow it. So we have this very slight chance here, starting over the weekend. Here off the southeast coast, we think that would tend to want to move away. And this one then next week, as the front just hangs out there, there's actually a little more indication that something would develop here than there, but we can't rule out either. So we're just going to get everybody to kind of keep their eye on it. Nothing's going to instantly develop. This isn't going to be one of those things where suddenly something springs up. But if it starts to percolate, then we'll have to watch it even more closely. And in any case, look at the rain.
Yeah.
I mean, big rain. So this is now going into next week, the total rain. And you can see where the dark greens and yellows are.
Yeah, right, very close to that front.
Right by the front there. And in southeast Florida here, where they really need the rain, not so much. It looks like the front's going to stall in the northern part of the state.
Right. We've got that drought condition all along the East Coast. So, I mean, they'll make out well in the northern part, but where the conditions are worse, as you pointed out, probably the least amount of rain there in South Florida.
It's bad down in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. All right, let's just talk about the Pacific, because we have something new in the Pacific. We have a new storm out here, just got named today, and it really just kind of adds to the record book. It really is not a big deal because it's a weak storm. Look, only 40-mile-an-hour wind, so barely a tropical storm. And there it is. It's just this ragged thing.
Right.
It's well offshore. It's not going to bother anybody, and it's going to move on offshore and not be an issue. And Mother Nature's kind of putting a cap on the tropics and not allowing things to develop right now. So I think we're going to go through a little period here with not a lot, and then things pick up again when we get to the end of July and into August.
All right, great. Thank you, Brian. And I guess, Dave, that means we say bye, Felicia. Well, fresh off the Women's World Cup victory, Abby Wambach is one of the biggest soccer stars on the planet right now.
Our Stephanie Abrams went one-on-one with her to talk about how weather impacts her game.
A lot about El Nino lately, especially the new impacts that can be blamed on it.
Now some scientists are predicting a super El Nino this fall, possibly the strongest on record. Our Stephanie Abrams explains what it could mean for you. Thanks for the El Nino update, Steph.
Now time for your tropical update. We want to head out to the lab with senior hurricane specialist Brian Norcross.
All right, Alex and Dave.